push the button. I'm going to call the November 12th, 2015 meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission together. I'll do roll call. No, I won't do roll call.
I can do it.
You can do it because I can barely remember commissioners who are sitting here's name.
So, roll call. We'll start with County Member Judy Arnold. Here. Special District Member Craig Murray.
Here.
Special District Member Jack Baker. Here. Chairman and Public Member Jeff Blanchfield.
Here.
Let the record reflect, we have alternate Public Member Chris Burdick in attendance. We are expecting regular County Member Damon Connolly shortly. And then both our two city regular members, Carla Condon and Gary Phillips, are excused. Roll has been taken.
Okay, before I proceed, I just want to mention that one of our alumnus, Jeff Slavitz, was elected to the Richardson Bay Sanitary District most recently. He was a top vote getter, and I'm sure everything he learned at LAFCO helped him in that matter. So, Keen, if I can ask you to introduce our new employee, Rachel Jones, it would be great.
With my pleasure. So to my left is our brand new full-time analyst, Rachel Jones. Rachel was the top candidate all the way through a very competitive recruitment process, and we provided a brief biography of Rachel's past and impressive accomplishments before the commission, and that includes most recently working at SPUR, the San Francisco Planning and Urban Research. And then, of course, while it's not USC, she was able to get a degree from Cornell, so she has that going for herself.
Well, we all have burdens to bear, so.
And if the commission would just appease us for a second, just allow Rachel to do a quick self-introduction on her own as well.
Great. Thank you, Rachel.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's a great pleasure. It has been a great pleasure working here at Marin LAFCO these last 3 weeks, and it's really nice to finally meet the Commission. I can definitely say that my experience and background has led me to a LAFCO, and I look forward for what is to come.
Thank you, Rachel. You know, when we adopted our strategic plan and work program last year, I think everyone was a little aghast at the amount of work that we had carved out for ourselves, but that was predicated on being able to fill the position Rachel has. And with her joining the commission staff, it means we can do things that we have always wanted to do. So we're very fortunate, I think, to get a person of her quality and caliber. Having met her and been able to talk to her for just a few times, I've been incredibly impressed. So Rachel, welcome, and thank you for picking us. I'm sure it was picking both ways. So welcome. The agenda, unless I hear differently, I'm going to take it as the consensus of the commission that the agenda and the order of the agenda meets your fancy. And open time. This is the time that we have on our agenda for members of the public to address the commission on matters within our purview that aren't going to be discussed or addressed this evening. And our procedure is, if you introduce yourself, please, that would be fine. And if you have any written material to leave with us, that would be great. And we will then have staff review the material that you leave with us and get back to us at our next meeting. So I see one person who raised his arm, hand, or both. They'd like to speak, and please come forward and speak into the microphone if you'd like to indicate who you are and if you have any organization. That way we make sure our minutes are correct.
Thank you. Is this on, Mr. Chair?
Well,
Let us turn this on for you.
I'm pretty low tech, so. On the mic, on the mic.
On the mic. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Savell, 499 Adobe Road, Pen Grove, California. I just wanted to mention that recently I've been working with the community of Los Ranchitas It's work that requires a lot of scanning, researching, and documenting administrative records regarding the history of the area covering several decades. To that end, I want to thank the Commission for its investment in LAFCO's website and providing access to such extensive archival records and videos of the hearings. It's a valuable resource which saves public countless hours from going to multiple agencies and hopefully it saves a lot of staff time. I also wanted to thank Candace for the formatting and making the website so user-friendly, but especially Keen for his patience and professionalism working with me on an unusual issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your kind words, and that's something that the Commission over the last few years has tried to do, is get our website user-friendly, attractive, and really a gateway of information about matters related to Marin County. So thank you very much. Any other member of the public like to address the Commission? Yes, please come forward. And welcome, Lou.
Terrible traffic.
Yes. The curse of coming from Southern Marin.
It is a curse at times, yes. Apologies for being late.
Okay.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the honor and privilege to have a few words with you tonight. My name is Malcolm Harvey. I'm a senior citizen and a resident of Tam Valley, which one might know as TCSD, is our special district. I'm one of 1,200 residents that I feel has been disenfranchised by potentially unfair fees charged on the property tax bill by our district. I was told by Keene that this commission has planned or has been invited by the state, whoever, to do a study on TCSD, the Tamalpais Service District, in the year 2017 or 2018. I would like to let you know that I would be available to assist to the fullest extent necessary with that study. I would also request that you might want to bring it forward. There's a lot of financial issues. There's information going around that there's extreme financial difficulty with our infrastructure to our sewage system. There's an area that has been needing repairs and replacement, labeled as Area 3A, which none of our board members are aware of the estimates that have been done, the engineering that's been done, and it was mentioned in a board meeting just recently. The superintendent of sanitary, Superintendent Bob Bantz, didn't know how much it would cost, and John Elam, our general manager, mumbled that it would cost about $2 million. The last time we did a job like this, it cost $7.1 million to replace 1.5 miles of pipe. We have 27 miles of pipe, and this is a second area. So there's some financial issues, and there's also a lot of financial issues as to where we send our sewage. We were told that Mill Valley was 2.5 times less expensive than Sausalito, and that was in 2009 when a study was done. We're still sending 93% of our sewage to Sausalito, which is 2.5 times the price that we were told. Obviously, prices have changed and things have changed, but Sausalito is a very old, small sewage plant that needs a lot of repairs, and it's 7 miles or so away from Tam Valley. The pump station that we would go to with Mill Valley is only less than a mile away, and it would be very little engineering to change that. We've now been told, after being in the dark for 5 years, that there was a new contract has been signed with the Sausalito sewage plant that can only be changed with negotiations from both sides. There seems like a lot of political interest here. Charles McGlashan used to live in Mill Valley. He doesn't live in Mill Valley anymore. There's another supervisor, and our financial manager lives in Sausalito. Sausalito has an incredible advantage on us sending our sewage to the Sausalito treatment plant, which, as I say, needs a lot of work. There's a lack of transparency, some of which I've mentioned. There's possible violations of federal laws with the EPA. The EPA asked us to put a camera down our sewer pipes in 2006, 2007, and that has not yet been completed. Some of the pipes in our sewage system have been taken off the sewage map, including one on my driveway. And there's no explanation for that. There's no clean out at the end of the pipe. And I've been told that there will be a clean out put in there, so they can't even put a camera down it. So that we've got problems with the EPA. We've got problems with the health department. Health department's been to all of our events and has told us that we're violating the health laws by having some of the events that we're having. We've got problems with the state Proposition 218 because our fees for services for both sewage and for garbage are not fair, and they're not costed per parcel. So they're not fair and equitable on the basis of per parcel as dictated by Proposition 218. I was told by our clerk that TCSD does not have to comply with Proposition 218 because we're not a utility. So it's pretty serious. And on top of that, there's an enormous amount of discrimination that has been revealed. There's a lot of concerns that I have. I've been working for 8 years to try and get this sewer structure fair, and I feel I've been discriminated against by many of the staff members. So I think there's a need for a study, and I'd like to ask you to bring it forward as quickly as you can. One of the major issues is we're going through an incredible management change. Our general manager is 72, going on 73, and there's 3 other of us, our senior staff members. The most important one is the Park and Rec director, the sewage superintendent, and also the financial manager are all due to retire within a few years. So financial meltdown, maybe. Let's see if we can stop it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harvey. We will clearly take your kind offer to participate when we get to that study in 2017, but we will visit it in our annual strategic plan review to see where it stacks up at that time.
Thank you. And if you can bring it forward, I think it would be advantageous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Any other members of the public want to address the commission during the open meeting period? Okay, then I shall move on to the consent calendar. We have 3 matters on the consent calendar.
I'll move consent.
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve the consent calendar. Consent items, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? The motion passes. Thank you. Let me turn then to the public hearing matters. The first on item number 4 concerns a concurrent sphere of influence amendment and annexation of a parcel in Dillon Beach to the North Marin Water District. It involves a sphere of influence amendment and a possible annexation to the North Marin Water District.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to do a quick overview with the premise that this is a relatively straightforward proposal, but there are a couple of LAFCO issues that I'm going to come to in just a minute. But again, before the Commission is a proposal that has been brought to you by landowner applicants Chris and Mary Pack, who are ultimately interested in getting your approval this evening to annex about 1/10 of an acre of unincorporated territory in the village area of Dillon Beach into North Marin Water District, all for the purposes of connecting into the district's wastewater system, a system that North Marin has been operating now since the early 1970s. And just parenthetically, although it's generally in the business of water, here, North Marin only does wastewater services. The affected water service provider is actually a private company by the name of Estero. So just a little extra context. So as you can see on our map, the affected territory itself consists of 2 recorded lots that happen to be under common ownership and use. There's a 950 square foot 2-unit residence, legal non-conforming multifamily residence, and then also a detached 650 or so square foot garage. And as you could probably expect, the intention of the landowners in bringing this proposal to you is pretty straightforward. First, they bought the property just a few months ago as a secondary residence. They want to eliminate having an on-site septic system. Fair enough. And then they also, looking ahead, want to position themselves to be able to do some home improvements. In particular, as provided in the application materials, the applicants want to augment that second lot into a second unit. That's where the garage is right now. And as we go through the analysis, and certainly the bulk of your staff report addresses all of the service and policy factors that the legislature tells you to consider anytime you look at a boundary change, by and large, they all check out, and that includes staff testing on its own that, yes, the way we see it, North Marin has plenty of sewer capacity to serve this property based on its highest in maximum use, which to us is 4 units. Now, I'll also add that we can do all of this under a CEQA exemption. All of this is good news. Now, the reason why this is not a consent item and is being brought to you as a public hearing is twofold, and they involve a couple of outliers that ultimately need the Commission's blessing on some workarounds. The first outlier issue is that the affected territory as it's been proposed, this 35 Ocean View Avenue, it's outside North Marin's sphere of influence. So under state law, not only do you have to give consideration to flipping this into a concurrent sphere amendment and making all of the necessary findings therein, it does raise the question under a literal reading of state law about having to perform a municipal service review on the wastewater system, okay? And you can imagine that's going to be time and cost. Our recommended workaround here is that the Commission take a in-spirit reading of LAFCO law. Given this is a relatively nominal change, we did do some extra work in the staff report to vet out our numbers, and so that you can go forward with the sphere amendment, make your findings, and again, without the municipal service review. In the same light, we're also asking that the Commission waive the $1,300 sphere amendment fee, again, for consistency with that other reference determination, as well as just some acknowledgement on our end. This sphere was established back in 1983. I think it's fair to say LAFCO is a little bit overdue in its 5-year review of this district sphere. So rather than ask the applicant to do their incremental part, that's on us. That would be our recommendation for, again, this first outline issue. The second outlier issue is the boundary itself for North Marin. So if you can kind of zone in on where Ocean View Avenue is, you can see, I'm going to use my red pointer, sorry about this, Chris, the street itself, which actually overlays the sewer main, is entirely outside the district itself. And so one of the things that the legislature frowns upon is this kind of non-jurisdictional corridor. So our suggestion here is not only do you do your part and add the public right-of-way that's immediately adjacent to our subject property, but with the blessing, if you will, or at least concurrence of the applicants here, they've agreed to take on the cost tied to bringing in the rest of this public right-of-way that we've highlighted in yellow. And again, it does come at a cost to them because they have to have their surveyor do a revised map and description. So again, I appreciate the applicants willing to do their part on what is a bit of a cleanup. So that's our core recommendation for you, again, that you flip this proposal into a concurrent sphere amendment, hence the public hearing, that you amend the proposal to take in an additional 0.8 acres of unincorporated territory. And then finally, this is more of a telegraphing comment. When you look at this proposal, and certainly this is new to your staff, I've never looked at really Dillon Beach before, and I assume this is true for most of the Commission. I think a fair LAFCO question is, why isn't the rest of this area of the village in the sphere of influence? Now, I know the district, and we do have a representative from the district here, Drew McIntyre, would say, well, it's because it's the way our treatment capacity is designed. We don't want to give the perception or suggestion to applicants out there that they can come and annex into the district. Fair enough. But of course, LAFCO looks at this with a different set of lenses. And so what I'm suggesting for the commission to do is provide your staff some formal direction and coverage by giving us the formal green light to look at adding this area into the sphere as we do or as we approach this comprehensive update that is on our table or radar to do in early 2016. We're not presupposing that it go in, we're just presupposing that it merits some serious consideration. So, I see I've perplexed the chair, so I'll stop for a second.
Wouldn't you look at a very broad universe doing that study anyway? I mean, I would think you would be looking at that even though you may not have been pushed by the commission to do so. So to me, it's sort of evident on the face. I ought to look at this and make some analysis, some judgment on it.
No, certainly. On the face level, staff would come to you with this analysis. However, by having the commission weigh in at this early stage, it allows us to have a little more substance when we do talk to the affected landowners that this is not just staff saying this might be an idea. This is something that at least the commission has looked at and said it passes this initial threshold of, yeah, let's talk about this. So again, it's a suggestion / recommendation from staff given this is something that you're asked to look at when we were reviewing this proposal. So with that, I did talk to the applicants. I see some questions.
Yeah.
Just back up
Yeah.
a sentence or two. What is the specific suggestion?
That the commission direct the executive officer to evaluate the merits of adding the rest of Dillon Beach into North Marin Water District sphere of influence.
Can we break that from what's before us
Certainly.
tonight as far as voting, discussing, and voting on the application itself?
Certainly.
And then get to that matter, which doesn't seem to be directly related now to the application before us. Yes, Commissioner Baker?
And have you had, I have to think you've had some discussions with Mr. McIntyre and Mr. Gabriel about
I'm sorry.
feasibility. If you push it back. Yeah. Sorry. You've had some dialogue, I hope, with Mr. McIntyre seated in the corner and Krista Gabriel about, is that even doable?
Well, so through the chair,
What
La-
the chair does not want to do is get these topics mixed up together. I'd rather focus on one thing and then go to the other. I think Commissioner Baker raises some good questions about the
Are you talking about
Expand.
just the one issue, Jack, tonight, the one part?
Yeah, just separate that, deal with it as proposed without sort of expanding it to talk about the whole Dillon Beach area. That's a very complex subject.
Well, what I'd like to do is get rid of that first topic and then see
Yeah,
if the
fine.
commissioners want to give any direction to the staff when they undertake that study. To do so with the commission suggesting this is one thing you ought to look at in conjunction with all the actors involved out there.
certainly. So with that in mind, we do have a recommendation captured as alternative action 1. It has these 3 steps. I would suggest that when the commission opens and then closes the hearing, that you just focus in on the first 2 actions, leave the 3rd action to another discussion point. I will share it with you again that I did talk to the applicants. They are fine with the recommended modifications to the proposal as submitted, and as such, they asked your forgiveness by not coming down to the meeting this evening. So with that, this is a public hearing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions before or after.
Okay. Let me ask commissioners, are there any questions you have of the executive officer before we proceed to the opening the public hearing on this? Yes, Commissioner Burdick.
Where do they get their water? This is a sewage issue.
Yeah.
Before tribal grid. This is the one district. Where do these people get their water?
So the actual service provider is a private mutual water company by the name of Estero. Where they get their water is through a collection of shallow groundwater wells, and I know that Drew McIntyre probably from North Marin might have a better descriptive answer to,
Going back to the
Turn your mic on.
bigger map, oh, I'm sorry.
yes.
Going back to the bigger map, all of these folks who aren't in the red also get their water from the private?
Well, yes, actually, there's a division. So there's two water companies. Essentially, the village is served by this Estero private mutual water company. Oceana Marin subdivision, as I understand, is served by a for-profit utility by the name of California Water. And they're regulated directly by the CPUC.
Okay.
Clarification. Yes, if you could introduce yourself.
Drew McIntyre, Assistant General Manager, Chief Engineer, North Marin Water District. Keene has it correct, except flipped 180 degrees. So Estero Mutual serves the Oceana Marin subdivision, the area that you see in red, and then the Cal American Water, now the private water system, serves what we call Old Dillon Beach, or the village of Dillon Beach. And there's a little spillover from one to the other, just kind of right in this checkerboard annexation area that we're looking
What's
at.
the area where they have the RVs, the Lawson's Landing?
Lawson's Landing, that's completely separate. They actually have their own separate water system from those two.
So there's a lot more to Dillon Beach than what we just see on the slide, including Lawson's Landing and in that area.
That's correct. There's essentially
Okay.
3 different communities out in that area, and Lawson's Landing actually has the most robust water supply.
Mhm.
The least amount of demand, though. Any other questions?
And if we'd gone back and read our water MSR report from last month, I wouldn't have asked this dumb question, right?
Well, in fairness, Commissioner Burdick, because it's a private system,
not
you know,
here.
it falls
But
outside
you had
of.
a portion in there about this.
We did have a portion, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Craig.
It's actually on the other map. Just curious, Keene, how is the public right-of-way defined that that's included with this landowner petition?
Outstanding question. So we have scaled the recommended boundary for the public right-of-way to reach the perimeter of 37 Ocean View Avenue to the north and 31 Ocean View Avenue to the south. So it would be literally from that property line, which is coterminous with the recorded lots, all of the public right-of-way, which is owned and operated by the county. And as such, just in case this is going to be the next question, it's exempt from us having to do any protest proceedings.
It's not the next question.
Okay.
What's magic about the ending at Lot 37 to the north, I guess, and Lot 31 to the south?
There's nothing magical about it other than it was staff's attempt to size the expansion to neighboring properties. So, for example, 37 very clearly is the next lot. 33 and 31 are actually merged lots. So this is one assessor parcel property that happens to show 2 structures, but we wanted just to take in the adjacent lots to the north and the adjacent lot to the south.
Okay, that makes sense.
And are these, is this a failing system?
Oh, not failing, but it is presumably the tank has been in place for the homeowner reports for at least 20-something years. And so you're getting to the point where you're going to have replacement anyway. And through the district's own policies, this, along with a few other properties along Ocean View Avenue, have been given kind of a cautious green light to come forward if they need to. And they just so happen to be one of those properties.
And are all the other ones around it of more or less of the same age and
Presumably.
engineering and?
So as we read the record, village subdivision was laid down in 1920. The lots started to be built thereafter. So I don't know when this particular lot was built, but I'm guessing anywhere between 1940 and 1970 were the bulk of these properties constructed.
Okay, any more commissioner questions? Oh, Lou.
Keen, does this establish any precedent that would be, referenced later? Or does it follow any precedent that has been set in the past? Or is this really a standalone kind of consideration and approval?
Well, I would say that's a little bit of both. To my understanding, and you can see these properties here, the commission over the last 10 years has approved kind of single-off annexations of a few other properties along Ocean View Avenue. They've been incremental, again, for a 10-year period. By annexing this property, I think one could at least argue that because it was specified in a North Marin Water District staff report of many years ago when there was some communication between the county and North Marin about addressing sewer issues, this in of itself is limited to, again, those handful of properties that, as I understood, North Marin's raised their hand up and said, yeah, we probably can serve them. Any other properties that are not on the list, I think you would have to make the argument that, well, that's a new ballgame.
But it is consistent with other actions we've taken in the past?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
It appears to be. And I take it that North Marin has said in this one, yeah, we can provide that service.
They have. We have their written consent, and again, Deputy Director is in attendance.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions before I open the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing, and anybody in the public who would like to comment on this particular item tonight? Guess not. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Motion and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? The hearing is closed. So, Keen, to give us sort of a roadmap through here, you have set out in your report on page 4 essentially kind of a cascading effect, which is, the first question is whether or not North Marin Water District's sphere of influence should be extended to include these two parcels.
Correct. So actually, excuse me. So on page 9 of the staff report, under section D, alternatives for action, we have essentially 3 steps for the commission to consider. The first 2 are specific to this proposal. Adopt the draft resolution that we've brought to you, making the required findings to amend the sphere of influence to take in the recommended modified boundary. Again, that would be 35 Ocean View Avenue and the public right-of-way as we've shown. The second draft resolution that we have before you then would be the boundary change. It would be the annexation of this affected territory with standard terms and conditions.
Okay, and then the third one we would hold off. That's the direction
Correct.
to take in the MSR for
Correct.
this area. Okay.
Correct.
So I'll move we adopt the recommendations A and B.
Okay, so that'd be attachment 1 and attachment 2,
Second.
which are the resolution. Have a motion and second. Yes, just, excuse me, Jack.
No, it's all right.
Oh, okay. We have a motion and a second to approve attachment 1 and attachment 2, which are 2 resolutions, one authorizing a sphere of influence amendment to the North Marin Water District to include 35 Ocean View Avenue in Dillon Beach, and the other resolution would be to approve the applicant's proposed request for annexation to the district at 35 Ocean View. Okay? All those commissioners in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? No, motion passes. Now, let's discuss the sort of direction, if you will, mildly pushing the staff, when they look at the MSR for this area, to look at potentially expanding the district's sphere of influence
Yes.
to include other areas within this community or communities. Do any commissioners have anything they want to comment? To me, it seems like a logical thing I would do regardless, but
Well, maybe a little more elaboration on what kind of community outreach and input on that idea has occurred.
Well, through the chair, the scope of work for the sphere of influence has not yet been done, so that would be something we would formally bring back to you, and that would include an outline of what avenues of engagement we would have for the sphere update, which would not only include, of course, this area of North Marin Water District, but again, the entire district that has the majority of its service area in the Novato area. And just for the benefit of context, the reason why staff, and perhaps in error, but the reason why staff added this statement as a recommendation is this proposal has engendered you to have to move the sphere of influence. When you make the findings for a sphere of influence, you have to give some basis as to how you're coming up with this designation. So given the way staff looks at this area and says, well, certainly it makes sense that this 35 Ocean View Avenue be included in the sphere, staff also has to say to itself, well, there's maybe merit to go further, but we're not there yet because we would need to do more outreach. That's the genesis for saying in the recommendation, hey, direct staff to go further and look at the merits and demerits as part of a comprehensive update rather than try to do that as part of today's action.
and that would be in the scope of study that you would bring to
Correct.
us to say, yes, this is the way to go, add this, do that. And I also would assume it would involve considerable coordination with the district itself, as
Absolutely.
Commissioner Baker says is incredibly important in this one. And I agree.
Yep.
Yes, Craig.
So, Keen, Drew mentioned that there's the village, the old Dillon Beach, and sounds like 3 different water districts. So besides sewage service, would the water districts be looked at as well, the private systems?
Well, not as part of the sphere update itself. You know, private utility services are a bit of a blind spot for us. So there's no direct correlation to your work plan, but as part of the strategic plan update, that's one of the questions that the water study has posed. Does the commission want to expend resources in looking further into water services and water service options in Dillon Beach? So it's something that we've put on the radar, but again, the way it's structured under state law, it would probably be mostly just an informational document.
And yes, Commissioner Baker.
I would assume and trust that as you go forward in the sphere of influence, given the complexity of those areas, Oceana Marin, that North Marin District does serve, Old Town that it doesn't, and then Lawson Landing that's a totally separate subject, except it's in the same vicinity. But that anyway, you have some further dialogue with North Marin staff. This goes back 40, 50 years to when Oceana Marin was first developed. We inherited the commitment to provide sewer service to that, not to Old Town or Lawson's Landing. But anyway, extremely complex. So I just, before you start creating some other false expectations for the some of the residents of Old Town, that you would discuss some of the realities with North Marin staff, please. Thank you.
Okay. Any other, Chris Burdick?
How many parcels are we talking? How many parcels are there, Keen, just in the little map we're looking at?
Chris, is your microphone on there?
Yeah, I just turned on. How many parcels?
I don't have a number count of those that are in village that are outside of the district boundary. That I don't know.
Okay. And does North Marin provide, where's the nearest water that North Marin provides out there? Point Reyes Station, I know, but
Correct. So the closest water distribution system would be considerably south of this community.
Point Reyes Station,
Yeah.
way south.
Okay, any other comments by commissioners? I think you get the essence of.
I do.
Okay, okay. I'll move to item number 5, which is a matter that is rescheduled to our next meeting, but Keen, do you want to provide us any
Just
additional
very quickly, so
information?
yes, the concurrent sphere of influence amendment and reorganization involving 91 Glenside Way, staff jumped the gun on scheduling this for this evening. We wanted to make sure that San Rafael Sanitation has a chance to review this item, so presumably on December 10th, we'll come back.
Okay, okay. I'll move to our next hearing items, which number 6, item number 6, which is request for outside water service in the Marin Municipal Water District, North Marin Municipal Water District, for some parcels along the Petaluma River in the city of Petaluma.
Not in the city of Petaluma, but close to the city of
Just
Petaluma.
below the city of Petaluma.
So this is a unique proposal, Commission. I'll say that up front. So before the Commission is a joint request that North Marin Water District and 2 interested landowners have brought to you today, ultimately seeking your green light under state law to normalize and legally approve water connections for 2 properties, which we've identified and then in the corner here by their property owner's last name, Yee and Fonts. And so this is territory that consists of 2 legal non-conforming residential uses. They're in the middle of an industrial area right south of the city of Petaluma, within the city of Petaluma sphere, but again outside the city. And just for the benefit of orientation, so here's Highway 101. For those of you who have seen the new on and off ramps that Caltrans has been working on for Petaluma Boulevard, that's right here. And this area over here, I believe, historically has been known as the Haystack Landing. This proposal is unique for 2 reasons. The first issue is these 2 affected properties already receive water from North Marin by way of a third-party arrangement that I think was a handshake agreement that kind of developed over time into kind of a permanent relationship in which the neighboring landowner, which is now the Dutra Group, allowed the 2 landowners to access through a private connection Marin Municipal's water line. Okay, so the baseline is these properties already get water service. However, the arrangement in which these 2 property owners get water service is coming to an end, and it's coming to an end fast because the Dutra Group recently got approval from the County Board of Supervisors in Sonoma, and the city of Petaluma has decided to stop the litigation component of a new asphalt project, again called, I think the Haystack Landing Asphalt Project. That's going to stop water service to being available to these properties through the historical means. The second unique issue here is that these properties lie outside of North Marin Water District's sphere of influence. And that means under state law, if you are inclined to approve standalone legal water connections for these properties, you have to do one of 2 things. Either you amend North Marin Water District's sphere of influence to include this area, and for continuity purposes, you would have to include other things south of this line to Marin. Or you have to make a determination that the request ultimately accommodates and addresses a public health and safety threat under LAFCO law. Now, certainly your staff would suggest the cleanest thing to do under LAFCO law, irrespective of local conditions, would be to look at a sphere amendment. However, when you apply local conditions to this, it's not an easy fix. First of all, again, we would have to do a lot more analysis, and we know that there's already pushback from the north, in particular, City of Petaluma, County of Sonoma, and even Sonoma LAFCO are not wild about you moving your sphere, North Marin sphere, into this area. That's part of the baseline.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Isn't that the smart railroad tracks right there?
Yes. It borders the property immediately to the west.
And have you checked with SMART? Because there's a whole thing being settled there of closing some roads. Dutra's going to build another one on Landing Way, and I just want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in the middle of something. I think we ought to check with that.
Oh, and I will defer to
It's a lawsuit.
Drew McIntyre for some details here, but because this is not an annexation, what is being asked of you is to essentially legalize a service contract between two interested landowners in the district. So no other lands are being involved here.
And what are the names of the landowners again?
Last name, Guy and Fonts. In fact, we have Mr. Guy in attendance tonight.
Okay.
And I think that he or Drew will speak to you just shortly. So given amending the sphere is problematic, at least right now, the fallback is, can you make a public health and safety finding? Your staff has worked with North Marin Water District staff. We think you can get there, and we think it would be done reasonably and in recognition that, hey, whether it's in a month or in a few months, their access to potable water is going to be gone. And there is another mechanism for these properties to get water from North Marin, but it would just be from the north, from the Shamrock, a separate rock quarry to the north. There's another water line up here, rather than access the water line this way.
And it'll be gone, why?
I'm sorry.
It'll be gone, why? Their access to water? Because
The Dutra Group development project is ripping up and grading the
Starting.
land, and that water line
Yeah.
access point's going to go with it. So,
And what is the property in question used for now?
right now, there are two single-family residences. The staff report, I think, has a little better scale to it.
Yeah.
They're non-conforming, okay? So they're in the middle of an industrial zoned area, but they predate current zoning. I think they were both put in before 1962.
But it may be zoned for residential use, but are people actually living there in this
Yes.
construction area now? Okay.
2 or 3.
People are living there right now, so it's a legal, non-conforming residential
Yeah.
structure.
All right.
And so staff is recommending that you go forward, approve the outside service request on the premise of making the public health and safety finding that we've provided for you in your staff report, and in consultation with the County of Sonoma and the City of Petaluma, we're also asking that the Commission term approval so that you would have both landowners record an agreement saying that water service is limited to what is on the ground today, and that there would be no avenue to piggyback and facilitate something other than what is there now.
What role, if any, do water agencies in Sonoma County in that area play in providing water to a place that's in the jurisdiction of the county?
So because he's here, and I think he would do a much better explanation, I'm going to defer that question to Drew McIntyre. And it's not a formal public hearing, but I think hearing from Drew would
it's going to
help.
be a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
Is this on?
We'll
Yes.
find out.
It is on. To go to Commissioner Arnold's first question regarding SMART, if I may.
Yeah.
We have been working with SMART staff on this issue. The new location for the water meters are in an area that did have very complicated right-of-way concerns, and SMART was actually involved with resolving those issues.
Okay, good.
We're communicating very closely with
Thank
SMART
you.
on that issue. And then Mr. Chair's question about other water service providers in the area. We provide water service to this area through the aqueduct, the large pipe that's owned by Sonoma County Water Agency now. Back in the early 60s, these customers, in the early 60s, we owned that pipeline, the aqueduct, and the customers were served by the city of Petaluma. At that time, we had problems with actually getting the records in a timely fashion for their water use, and it was just agreed between the city of Petaluma and North Marin Water District to transfer those customers to North Marin Water District. So that was back in the 60s. Time has transpired, and over the last 10, if not 20 years, North Marin Water District has been very interested in transferring these services back to the city of Petaluma, and have on many times made requests to have that happen. And I'm happy to report that there appears to be momentum in that regards. So I think the city of Petaluma now is actually interested in taking over these customers. And they're looking at this. One of the questions right now, it's in a holding pattern because they want to wait to see what happens with Marin LAFCO to make sure that if they do take over the customers, that they're not inheriting some pre-existing problem with the Yee and Fonts parcels. So assuming that the board or the commission does approve this tonight, tomorrow I'll be the first one to email the city of Petaluma and let them know that, good news, this is, LAFCO has approved this, and hopefully they will move forward on their end with continuing to investigate the feasibility of taking over these services. But North Marin Water District is strongly encouraging these services actually to be transferred back over to the city of Petaluma.
Great, thank you very much. That's very illuminating.
Great.
Great.
So as reading the executive officer, Mark Branford's letter to Keene from Sonoma County LAFCO, and just as Mr. McIntyre pointed out, it sounds like the trigger, it's conditioned. It says if the infrastructure permits it, I'd like to see the outside service agreements run with City of Petaluma for that service. So it sounds like at this point it's easier due to infrastructure to serve with North Marin Water rather than City of Petaluma.
Okay.
Good to hear it working towards that direction.
Yeah.
It does seem odd that we're looking at something in Sonoma County.
Well, I think we ought to be looking at least up Mendocino way, too. Okay. Any other questions commissioners may have of the executive officer and his report before we open the public hearing? Good. So I'm going to open the public hearing on this matter for those members of the audience that would like to address this. Mr. Yee, do you want to say anything, or?
Can't hear.
He pulled.
Good evening, Mr. President and member of the board. My name is Yee, Y-E-E. I'm here in front of you at this moment. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present my case. Okay. I have been living that address in the late 60s, 65 in the vicinity. Of course, we have shared water from the properties in front of us. It was at one time or another that piece of property in there, mine and Mr. Fons, and now Dutcher's, was in one piece of land. As before the city even become a city. Mm-hmm. And the Indians used to live there. And those days, in the old days, they used that area for driving the turkeys, cows, and load it in there. And for more recently is that, not recently now, but it's quite a while ago, when Golden Gate Brewers was building the Bay Bridge was building that time. That's where they unload the gravel. Has a bell that kind of over there, to the barge, and they take it down for there. What we did is they say that we cannot share the water and so on and so forth. But we have tried for many years, tried to get it. Not very successful, okay? And all I can appeal to you now is have a little heart so we could have our water. And under the guiding by Mr. Chief Engineer, we've been through all this proper way and all that already, as I was told. And from now on, we'll just keep forward to make the thing work. If you could, your board member, study it and approve it, I'm grateful. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Yi.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to comment? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to close the public hearing. All those commissioners in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstain? The motion passes. So we are looking at an approval of joint request with a finding, I understand, that there is a pending threat to public health and safety associated with the proposal.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the joint request. With those findings. All those members of the commission in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstain? The motion's passed. And we will move to the report from the policy committee regarding comprehensive update to the policies, procedures, and guidelines, which we have been methodically going through now for a number of months, and our process has been to take chapters of the reconstituted commission policies, procedures, and guidelines and discuss them here, vet them with the other public agencies in the county, get their comments, make changes, bring them back, take action on them tentatively, and put them up on the shelf until we have finished going through all the chapters, the 5 proposed chapters to the new handbook. And at that time, we'll bring them back all together so we can look at them as one document, one set of policies and procedures as the legislature requires us to operate under, and then take action on them sometime this spring. So one of the things we will talk about is some of the roadblocks the policy committee has found in our personnel policies. But first, I'll let Keen describe where we are on the first 3 chapters, which we've tentatively approved, and this time we're looking at the 4th chapter, I believe, that addresses our planning responsibilities, basically how we'll undertake sphere of influence and municipal service review activities.
Yes, so, Chair, as you mentioned, this policy update process started actually a little more than a year ago, and it is possible by the end of tonight, the Commission will have completed, or at least tentatively completed, 3 of the 4 phases that the Commission outlined as part of this process. Phase 1 we got to several months ago. That was our administrative and business policies. Phase 2 we got done in August. That was our regulatory policies. And then Phase 3, which is back before you tonight, deals with your planning policies, in particular how this commission chooses to perfect the business of establishing spheres of influence and then going about performing municipal service reviews. And so again, as you'll recall, in August we brought to you, the policy committee brought to you draft amendments towards this end. The commission at that time nodded its head, said, okay, these look fine for the time being, go out and seek comment. And so that's what we did. We sent a notice to all 65 agencies. We put a notice up on our website soliciting comments and feedback, I believe, through the end of September or October. Tonight we come back to you with those amendments fully intact as you saw them back in August. And hopefully we've done a good job of summarizing the key changes that the committee is proposing in the agenda report itself. I do want to comment that we did receive comments a little later in the process from Los Ranchitos Homeowners Association. I know we have a couple of members in attendance tonight. Their letter is attachment 3 to your packet. And while we didn't have time to address it directly in the report, in a few seconds, if it's the Commission's interest, I'd like to come back and just touch upon some of the comments. But again, so we're looking for the Commission to tentatively approve with whatever desired changes you see fit this Phase 3, again, your planning policies. The second item, as the Chair noted tonight, is for the committee just to give the Commission a brief heads up on some of the issues that you're tackling as part of this fourth and final update process, your personnel policies. In particular, the challenge of trying to scale policies for a relatively small governmental agency that you're still subject to a lot of the requirements and processes, but you don't have an HR department or a division, so you're trying to find the right balance. And I'll leave that to the committee to go into a little more detail. But going back to just the Los Ranchitos comments, as the Commission will recall, there are a handful of islands, what staff would call entirely surrounded islands in Marin County. One of them, based on our mapping, is the Los Ranchitos community. It's actually right next door to the LAFCO office, across the freeway from Civic Center. Through some multiple discussions with their representatives, they brought forward essentially a request as part of their comments on our policies that looks at kind of where the rubber hits the road on these type of issues. Your policies, both current and what is proposed, all speak to the idea that infill is preferable and that islands, in at least our policy jargon, is considered inherently infill. Understandably, Los Ranchitos has raised the question, well, wait a minute, not all islands are equal, and we have particular interest in remaining rural. How do your policies and your proposed policies intersect with what our goals are? That is, I think, the context to the letter that you have. I know that the two members here would like to address the Commission, and certainly I have some thoughts about maybe some reconciling ways to meet the two minds together. But it does raise this interesting question of you're trying to enact state law from Sacramento, and sometimes you get some local issues on the ground that don't provide an easy fix. So with that, I'd be happy to go into more detail, but I'll turn this back to the Chair.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the Commission saw the Chapter 5, which is attached to your report, where the language that would be added to our existing policies, many of them which we have had for a considerable period of time, is the underlined language, and the lined out language would be deleted. So you can see that there are some additions, but pretty much the policies that the Commission has operated under for a number of years remain about the same. There's been some order, making them a little bit more logical, but that's what's before you. So what we are looking for is, again, tentative approval of these changes with the understanding it will come back with all the other ones later this spring. So this will require a motion or just a consensus. I'm not sure how we officially bless this and any changes.
Well, you have flexibility, so as long as there's no dissent, I think a nod of the head is fine in terms of putting phase 3, which we call Chapter 5 here, the planning policies, up on the shelf. And again, as the chair said, we're not looking for any end approval. Eventually, we're going to bring back everything to you as part of one approval action, maybe as early as the February meeting, but that's dependent on the personnel policy update as well.
Okay. So unless maybe other members of the policy committee would like to comment on this, but if not, I guess my suggestion is, unless the commissioners feel that we should take this on again, that we tentatively authorize the proposed changes, and that's what they are at this point, and put it up on the shelf as we move to the final section, which deals with personnel. If that all right? Okay.
Okay.
That's sort of a nod of the head and the tip of the hat, I believe.
Very good.
Okay.
I would
but you had some comments, Keen, you were going to suggest.
I think we have some
considering
public
the letter.
comment.
Yeah, but before I move to that, suggest on the letters you receive, or do we want to move to the public comments
Well,
first?
perhaps if it's okay that, depending on where the commission wants to go with it, I do have some thoughts, but I do
Okay.
want to recognize the speakers in it.
Okay,
audience.
well, this is a hearing, so those members of the audience that would like to address the commission on this, if you could state your name if you wish. You're not obligated to do so, but it helps to get your name correctly spelled in the minutes.
My name is Layla Hill. That's Leyla, last name Hill, like what we have all around here. I live in Los Ranchitos. I'm the president of a homeowners group that we have in Los Ranchitos. And our concern is, as Keen said, with staying rural and staying unincorporated. I have to confess I am in way over my head in all of the procedural details and constructions that you operate under here. How I came to this originally was one of our residents brought to my attention a June 2014 agenda report having to do with LAFCO developing an island annexation program for the city of San Rafael that specifically referred to a work plan to annex Los Ranchitos and other islands of unincorporated county into the city of San Rafael. And that created a big stir among our residents, none of whom, so far I've talked to a lot of people in Los Ranchitos, and there is not a single person who has any kind of a favorable notion about us being annexed into the city. So that stands there. And then we became aware, in looking at that, we became aware of all these policy changes coming down the road and a reaffirmation of the spheres of influence and annexation programs. Rick Savell has been helping us understand what these are about, and he can speak to the specific issues. But all of this looked like, at least on paper, there was a lot of movement toward annexing Los Ranchitos eventually, not right now, but eventually, to the city of San Rafael. There's a charged history for that. There was a bitter, bitter battle some 20 years ago about the sewers in Los Ranchitos that people still don't speak over because there was a constituency that was fairly certain that the next step after annexation to the sewer district was going to mean annexation to the city and subdivision of the lots and sidewalks and streetlights and things like that. So given that history, as we started looking at this policy and trying to understand ourselves, how is it there can be these policies that clearly move toward annexation, and yet at the same time we're very happy to know, and Supervisor Connolly has been really, really helpful to us in doing some research and presenting us with a kind of informal statement that that's not going to happen. But there's still our concern about policies that say one thing and the desire of the residents and the assurance of our supervisor, which seem to go in a different direction. So when we saw these policies, we began to realize that so many of them move toward or look like annexation would happen eventually. And then we started thinking about, well, is there some other long-term change of status that we can make? Otherwise, given the public hearing period to make comment on the policy changes and on the policies themselves, we would have to sit down and make a very long list of all of the things that we really would not want to be applied to Los Ranchitos. And we came to the understanding that that would be really impractical. I mean, you have a job to do here. We understand that. We just don't want you to do it to us. So that's where we came to this idea of being trying to be detached from the sphere of influence of the city of San Rafael. I mean, we're open if there's, for our situation, if there is another solution, if there's an alternative, or several others alternatives to consider, we're certainly open to that. But we felt that it was important to go on record with our objections to the policies at this particular time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and do you have specific policies, specific language you object to, or that will be forthcoming? Okay.
Rick can speak to that.
Okay.
Rick Savell.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hill. I should ask if any of the commissioners have any questions of Ms. Hill. Ms. Hill. No. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rick Savell, 499 Adobe Road, Pengrove. I do want to say, too, that Layla is the president of the association. I volunteered my services in memory of my parents, who were original homeowners and builders there 65 years ago. But I'm in the community service, so ultimately these decisions, my recommendations, are up to them. I'm going to be impartial. A little about my background. Unfortunately, I have a great deal of expertise on exactly this kind of matter. When the unincorporated island of Pengrove, for those of you that aren't familiar with the area, we're situated against the foothills of the Sonoma Mountain, flanked by Petaluma to our south and Rohnert Park to our north. It's a double whammy. Rohnert Park, in their entertaining their general plan in year 2000, decided that they'd set their voter-approved UGB in their sphere and overlap about 300 acres of a well-defined area within our plan, in the county general plan, outlined as critical groundwater recharge area. That led to a lawsuit and Judge Antolini's decision. And I'm telling you this just so you know I have some expertise in these matters, and I'm concerned. I want Keene to know some of the findings, because I support the island annexation problem. You probably all have heard of Roseland. It's a terrible situation in Sonoma County. It's the poster child of why we need those policies. I agree with that in general, but as you know, things in general, when you look at specifics, can be quite different. We won the lawsuit. The Planning Conservation League, on the groundwater extraction part of it, one was on planning, one was on groundwater extraction, which is the preeminent CEQA organization in Sacramento, published in 2004 a guide to 35 years of CEQA, the 75 most important cases. Ours was one of them on groundwater. Spotting what I guess he thought was talent, Supervisor Kearns put me on the 2020 general plan update for Sonoma County. I worked there for 6 years. I also was chairman of the Sonoma County Water Agency Zone 2A Flood Control District for the Petaluma Basin for 6 years, and I resigned in 2007. So I do have some experience. As I said before, I do support the island annexation policies. It's more a matter of how they're being applied. And before I go any further, I do want to address what I consider, and I put in my memo, a misrepresentation of Las Ranchitas being an entirely surrounded island. I've given Keene 3 different maps, one of which we received from the county is a land use map, a GIS map, what have you. He still doesn't believe me, I guess. He's looking for, through his resources, to find that identical information, but we're recommending that it go on to your list 2 of substantially surrounded. Moving on, we weren't notified about these hearings. We found out by mistake. In terms of the issue is boiled down, I had a good conversation with Key today, is that it's my understanding in the county of Marin, I don't want to sound flip, that the lead agency for land use in the county is the Board of Supervisors, not LAFCO. And what I mean by that is the threshold that we're being asked to meet to be withdrawn from the sphere of influence, Keene is suggesting a community services district. Now, LAFCO's policies say that proposals have to be consistent with appropriate city and county general, specific, or community plans. Now, I guess what I'm saying is, it's my understanding that our board, our representatives, define our areas. They set our boundaries. Judge Antolini found the same thing in the Pengrove case, but for some reason when I come to LAFCO, I'm being given different criteria that doesn't recognize the county general plan and doesn't recognize Las Ranchitas as a separate identified community. I find that I'm perplexed and flexed by that. I don't understand that. Hopefully that could be clarified tonight. In terms of the island annexation policies, I would respectfully suggest that as you go about that, based on that lawsuit, that you make a distinction between undefined areas versus areas that have communities. And UGBs, spheres, and cities annexations as they relate to contiguous unincorporated islands in county jurisdictions that are defined and established communities within a county general plan was exactly part of the nature of that lawsuit with Rohnert Park. In that instance, they tried to use a voter-approved UGB and findings of overriding consideration to overlap and set up their sphere to annex lands within an established community identified in the Sonoma County General Plan. I'll share with you one brief story, and it's a true story. Being naive at the time, Supervisor Kern's office provided me with all the planning documentation to put on the record for their consideration in their general plan. And not knowing better, I didn't get a receipt. When we got to Judge Antolini, they denied that they ever got the planning documents because he put great weight on that. And as I was called to the stand to testify, the city attorney stood up and said, "It doesn't matter. We have their plans. We don't have to refer to them or reference them. We're the city of Rohnert Park. We're a sovereign city. We can set our spheres and UGBs wherever we please." Well, that didn't float. Lost. And they had to reapply to LAFCO to remove that sphere from those 300 acres. Taking what we learned from that to our South Petaluma, we had a unique historical situation in 1972. There were very small 6,000 square foot lots in the core of town from 1904, and they didn't have expansion areas for sewer. And our beloved supervisor, bless her heart, Helen Putnam, saw that we got service from the city of Petaluma to rectify that situation. And we were put within their sphere just for that purpose. As a result, of that lawsuit with Runner Park, and I could describe to you the community. It's very similar to Las Ranchitas. But during the municipal services review for the city of Petaluma in 2001, the sphere of influence determination was the Pen Grove sanitation zone is within the city of Petaluma sphere. The only connection to the city is through an agreement, which is a joint JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, for the city to provide sewerage treatment for the zone. Conclusion, Pen Grove is an independent community with a distinct identity. The county plan supports the exclusion of the area from any city sphere. And that's Sonoma LAFCO recently.
Okay, do you have any language that you object to in these policies and procedures that you could share with us?
I do as they apply, Mr. Chair, and respectfully, I've declined doing that because I thought it would unnecessarily slow down your process, which is a very lengthy one and Keene has worked very hard on. And I felt trying to do it on a piecemeal basis would be indirect and counterproductive rather than going to the heart of the problem, just saying, let's get out of the sphere and have an outside service agreement for fire and for paramedic.
You understand what before us now is the procedures in which one would undertake a sphere study.
Right.
It's not a sphere study of anything in particular at this point. It sets up the purpose, the process, and procedures to conduct a sphere of influence study.
Right.
So it would give the commission the directions to do that. There is no sphere study on our work schedule right now, no.
Right. But there was language, I guess what I'm saying, where I'm off base, was my understanding, based on Keene's presentation, I've watched the videos, thank you for putting them on the internet.
Very good.
That due to new legislation that was coming down, some of the new policy language was putting particular emphasis on island annexations. And I understand, like I said, Roseland's a terrible problem, but I'm afraid that this, in our cases, we were put in the sphere for entirely different purposes, and these would be unintended consequences to us. I can, if you'd like, Mr. Chair, from tonight's report, I could point to page 3, notable items, amendments.
Tonight's report, staff
if I'm
report.
addressing what you're requesting, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Page 3,
Page 3,
at the bottom.
the bottom.
Well, it's half-
Deference to LAFCO schedule and making sphere of influence changes.
Commission intentions in establishing and updating spheres of influence. I'm showing that on page 3.
It is, this is above what you just read, Jeff.
Yeah.
Commission.
Oh, explicit
I'm sorry.
Where it cites the government code, is that the explicitly contemplates?
Yeah. About the middle of the page, starting with the word, fourth line down, middle, this includes making explicit. And
Okay,
it makes a distinction between planning areas depending on which side of the sphere you're on.
yeah.
That's an example of the type of thing we're concerned about.
Okay.
But again, I didn't take it piece by piece by piece because I thought it would slow down your process. So I put the memo in citing the overall, what our situation is. I guess a real concern to me too, and Commissioner Baker, I might say, because
Actually,
you,
if I can just, so, yeah, because that's kind of taking a sentence in isolation in a
Right.
report that doesn't even, may or may not reflect
correct.
the context of the policy. So the bigger issue, though, is that would imply annexation of the area to the city. And from what I understand, and Keene, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot would have to happen before annexation were to occur. A lot of entities would have to agree. The community would have to agree.
A study would have to be
Well, in an
done.
abundance of caution, I recall, I think I had prior language suggesting even a study removed already. So what I want to make sure about is, on one hand, my interpretation, as the chair was alluding to, is the policies are kind of just running through boilerplate state law on what LAFCO does regarding spheres of influence. So to somehow try to tailor that for what may happen at some unknown time to one area,
That's not feasible.
it seems like there is probably a better approach. So I'm hoping we can
And I didn't
move
want to
toward
belabor
that.
the commissioner, try to slow down. I know that these hearings, it takes time to get through them. I've been through thousands of hours of stuff on the agenda. I didn't want to slow that down. And Commissioner Connolly, you're right. I just wanted to get to the heart of the matter. And as you pointed out when this first came up, language has meanings. Yeah. That's what Judge Antolini thought too. And these general plans, and as a board member, we do these, whether it's a specific plan or a community plan or area plan, and our planning department goes to a great deal of trouble to develop those, only to come here to find out they're obviated and have to be a community service district? Who decided that? In other words, the only recognition...
I don't
I
think we've
understand
heard that
Well,
necessarily.
this is what I'm hearing
From
from
hearing-
staff, that in order for us to be recognized as that determination was from our general plan lawsuit, what he's saying, we're not a separate, distinct, identifiable community unless we can get that badge that says CSD. Now, 30 miles up the road, we're an established area within a codified general plan. We had our boundaries upheld. We've even had a sphere removed. Even though we receive sewerage service from Petaluma, we don't have to be in their sphere. It's been retracted. That doesn't mean they get to annex us. They just give us service through a GAPA. That's a contract. The intent of that was not to bring us in the city. It was to give us service. And what worries me the most, folks, is because this has gone on for 40 years, again and again and again and again. Commissioners change, our board members change, council members change, and with the passage of time, and I might appeal to Commissioner Arnold, who's had decades of service in Marin County.
At least it's not centuries.
It gets lost. And then pretty soon it takes on a life of its own, and it's turning into an art form. You know? So I'm trying to make order out of chaos, Mr. Chair.
I think your point is, you don't want to be in the city of San Rafael.
Never.
Okay,
We never
and I
did.
think that
We were never
that's
supposed
fine.
to.
What these policies are supposed to do is Commissioner Conley points out, is a sort of restating what's in the government code, and then how we would do our work under
Right.
this. That's all it does. It doesn't say there ought to be specific sphere studies or island studies. It says this is kind of the framework in which we would operate. When and if, on our work program, certain studies would come into effect that would look at spheres of influence, which are we required to review and update every 5 years.
Well, thank you for that point, Mr. Chair, because as I pointed out, that one policy, it begs the question, in light of all of that, and the reason, you use CEQA language, there are no reasonably foreseeable conditions under which we're going to need any other services from the city. Why in God's name do we need to be in the sphere? Is it ideology? I mean, I'm a practical guy. I'm a pragmatist, Can somebody tell me, in this day and age, when we have outside service agreements, we have contracts, we have a JPA with the city of Petaluma, we don't even have to be in their sphere. So why are we being held there? I don't understand this. Why can we not detach from that, be part of the greater county of Marin? There is an outback called the county, for those of us that are city-centric, and have fire and paramedic service as we pay San Rafael for. It's not free, folks. We pay for that. So what was done 40 years ago, and as policies and times have changed, that was, and again, you might remember when the county reorganized its fire and downsize and it was seen as a way to save money. It was more economical, and it was always with the proviso and the understanding it would not ever lead to annexation of the city, ever. If that's being obviated now, then we want to opt out. We want to put up a flag and say that can't be carried forward. There are new policies coming down that make that too unwieldy to get these assurances from multiple agencies. To me, with all due respect, it's like bureaucratic waterboarding every time I go through this. It's revisiting Roner Park, the nightmares with them, everything. I just, please, is there a simpler way? There's got to be a simpler way. I do want to make a correction to the record, too, for Keene. And to your memo, I had noted that the open space district that we're contiguous to had been once in the city sphere. That's incorrect. It was the open space was in Las Colinas Sanitary District sphere. That was a mistake, Keene.
Okay.
It was
that's
withdrawn
helpful.
in the 80s because it wasn't seen that there'd be any services needed there. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
if I can
thank you.
answer any questions, I'd be glad to.
Thank you, Mr. Seville.
Could we, a question I could ask of Keene.
Yes.
Is there a problem with adding like an addendum saying Los Ranchitos does not want to be in the sphere of influence
Send it to Senator Phil.
to San Rafael? Yeah, doesn't want to be annexed to San Rafael.
Perhaps not as the commissioners have noted as part of this broad policy document, but one of the suggestions that and admittedly, I just shared it with Rick just a few hours ago, so I didn't put it in the staff report, but when you do sphere updates, there's nothing to stop the commission to create policy statements within a sphere update, whether it's San Rafael or whatnot. And if the commission chose at that time, that would probably be the better avenue to make a statement of that type.
It would seem to me important to have in the file this concern for when we take on this area, working with San Rafael and others about this issue. And it will come up. It came up in Indian Valley beforehand.
Yeah.
We worked on that. So there's some precedent for us on that. And that's, at that time, it would be good for you and whomever the duly elected members of the Homeowners Association want to participate in that process. We would look forward to that. And so I think this is a good kind of check on our list of what we have to do when we get to this sphere of
You have a
influence
timeline
study.
of when we're going to be looking at this?
And if I could, Mr. Chair, as I suggested to Commissioner Connolly, too, even if it involved, we're talking about San Rafael, but again, we need something at the county. We don't vote in San Rafael. This was part of the problem with Roner Park, is you know, UGBs are voter approved.
Right.
Pengrove has no vote in Roner Park. We have no control over the council members. We're administered by the county of Marin.
We know.
So we need, we need something, but I guess my other thing, and I'm impartial, the community, that's a generous offer that you've made, and the community may accept that, but I haven't heard a reason yet why we can't be detached if we request it.
Well, that would be something we would take up at that time.
Very good. Very good.
You know, that's the venue in which to bring this up, because then we'll be focused on it.
Okay, have I talked too long, Mr. Chair?
Close to it, yeah.
Okay, if I could, I'd like to give these maps to staff.
That would be fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Great. Any other member of the audience that would like to speak on this matter this evening? Okay. So I'm taking from the commissioner, the essence of the commission is to put this up on the shelf, as we call it, to take the concerns of the Los Ranchitos group and make sure that that is addressed and they are invited into the process when the sphere of influence is looked at, as we're required to do within a 5-year time span, so it's much closer than 5 years. What date, I don't know. It is. But
It just because we have the attendees in attendance tonight, we are scheduled in our study schedule for the next fiscal year to look at San Rafael. So it's coming up.
there you go.
Okay. No.
I,
Only that we'd like to do it in the most cost-effective, easiest under routine circumstances that we could.
We'll be sending to you
Just
a very
government.
reasonable bill.
Nothing's cost-effective or routine.
Thanks very much. Okay, two things, and we'll try to make this short on the policy matter that deals with personnel. One of the things when we took on personnel, I thought this was going to be an easy matter because we found out that we had two sets of policies that dealt with personnel. And they had been developed independently over time, some maybe 20 years previous. Then they set out specific procedures to follow. And then we found in a file another policy that dealt with personnel and nobody had seen before. So we tried to cobble together all the personnel policies we had. And then it became apparent that many of our policies were older, they may not reflect court proceedings, and that we were skating on some pretty thin ice when we took on some personnel matters. And one of the difficulties was, as with many LAFCOs, were really spawned at the county level, and we had relied on the county personnel department to follow their rules and what we did, and they saw our personnel matters until it became inefficient for the county to provide these services for this small agency such as LAFCO and other ones. And then we were on our own. What we've been doing for a while is really creating a new agency. But we don't have, as Keene pointed out earlier on, a human resources department. We don't have somebody that's keeping up on the state of the law constantly. And as I said, we're skating on some thin ice. So one of the things we have been looking at is, can we go back and contract with the county so that we could have them as a contract personnel department or human resources department? So we're looking into that. Another thing would be, is there any other outside group or organization that does this for small public agencies such as ours? So we're looking into that. In addition, we looked at one of the matters that we really have to address and cure, and that is whether or not we want our employees in MCERA or a direct contract with CalPERS. And Commissioner Burdick has attended a seminar on just what CalPERS could or could not offer us, and has some thoughts that he could convey to us about what he learned in that conference. But this is a big undertaking, and I learned it ain't easy, and we're still a work in progress. So, Christy.
Well, our employees are in MCERS and have been since day one. When we discovered that Mr. Banning, to his dismay and our dismay, was not, as we had all assumed, covered for retiree health care, and we had to scramble and deal with that, we found that working with both the county and MCRS was not the easiest process in the world. In fact, it was downright hostile and unwelcoming. And when we finally got that resolved, and we tried to start pre-funding our OPEB obligations, the county flat out refused to amend its contract with CalPERS to include us in it for no reason that I could figure out other than they just didn't want to do it. So, we can keep on keeping on with MCERS, or we can explore the alternative of going into CalPERS prospectively or retroactively. So, always been unhealthily interested in pension and retirement matters. I did go off this CalPERS seminar in San Jose for 2 days. It was fascinating. This was one of the best run, best organized, and most informative workshops I've ever been to. There were 500 people there. And if you wanted to and had enough high threshold for pain, in the morning you could go to one of 4 seminars. You could go to a Gatsby seminar, you could go to an actuarial assumption seminar, you could go to a Pepper seminar, you could go to one on healthcare, and in the afternoon you could go on recruiting and retaining employees after Pepper. You get the idea. And then they had these booths. I don't know if you've ever been to the San Jose Convention Center, but they had like 20 workstations. And you could go talk to someone whose job was reciprocity. You could go talk to someone whose job was post-retirement health care for special districts. And they were there from 8 until 5. There was someone there the whole time. And if they couldn't answer your question, they would make you a little appointment, and you would go downstairs to one of the little conference rooms. You could talk to people. And if they didn't know the answer, they told you right then and there. They would take your card, and they would send you an email within 24 hours. The comparison between this clasp me to your bosom, how much information can I give you approach, and the county's nolo me tangere, we don't want anything to do with you approach, was pretty striking. Anyway, if we want to explore switching our employees out of the county system into CalPERS, at which point our employees would get pooled with hundreds and hundreds of under 100 employee. CalPERS takes everybody who has fewer than 100 FTEs and pools them actuarially, so that, you know, if you got 98 employees or 2 employees, you get, in essence, the same rate speds statewide. We can certainly explore that, and CalPERS will be glad to come down and talk to the Personnel Committee. They'll be glad to come down and talk to these people. They will send people down here. We can ask for a quote. They will give us a quote. And we'll probably get more information in 60 days than we will get in 60 months from the county. Maybe we'll save money. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'd be better off staying where we were. But I think it would be prudent to find out.
Craig?
Sir.
So, hey, Chris, so it's great you attended the CalPERS.
I had so much fun.
Yeah. My question is, if the county is not receiving this well, then can we look throughout Marin, perhaps our 2 charter cities, either Novato or San Rafael?
Novato's a general law city.
Well, then San Rafael's charter city.
Yeah.
Is it possible to link in with them in terms of adding employees there?
I got the San Rafael cops and firemen out of CalPERS and into the county retirement system in the 70s because we got much better benefits. They're in the county system. They still are. A number of the special districts are in the county retirement system, but Sausalito is in CalPERS, Mill Valley's in CalPERS, City of Novato's in CalPERS. All of the cities, with the exception of San Rafael, are in CalPERS. There are only 2 games in town, CalPERS or the county. And we can't go talking to Novato or San Rafael about getting in bed with them because they're already in one, bed or the other. CalPERS is like, getting into CalPERS before Pepper was like going to the GM dealer in Auburn where they sold a Geo Prism or a Cadillac and you could buy anyone in between. And you could have these options. You don't do that much anymore. The county system is a little bit, but we don't have any choices. We're either going to stay where we are. Well, we have 3 choices. We stay where we are, go to CalPERS, or we freeze our system and go to a 401k plan, at which point we would lose both our employees, I think, within 90 days in a hurry.
Chris, did you talk to a CalPERS representative that perhaps ran across similar LAFCO situations and,
yes, I
and
did.
How they placed those employees? And
Yeah.
what was the recommendation?
Well, to them, LAFCO is just another entity. They don't distinguish between a LAFCO and a special district, a CSD, or whatever. If you're interested in getting out, and they've taken people out of failed systems. Berkeley, the city of Berkeley got out of its own retirement system and went to CalPERS. El Cerrito, Albany, Alameda, they all got out of their own retirement systems. They will do it. They just want to know, you give us the actuarial data on who you've got. We'll run what plan do you want? What options do you want? We'll run the numbers, we'll tell you how much it costs. You want prior service or you don't want prior service? In other words, you want to freeze your county time because there's mandatory reciprocity. Keene was already a CalPERS member. Candace has only been an MCRS member. We could either buy their service, freeze their service, move it forward. There are all kinds of options, but they'll, in essence, provide us with more information and data. We just got to indicate an interest to them, that's all. And they don't charge you anything.
So,
We're doing in this.
Chris, can we pursue, so we can narrow the options for the commission?
Yes.
We can pursue that with CalPERS
Oh, yeah. I don't
and
even
come
think-
up with maybe 2 or 3 scenarios under CalPERS.
Sure. I mean, what I would assume we would ask them is, what plan do you have which is most closely approximate to the plan we are presently offering our workers? 1, and 2, what would that cost going forward? And 3, if we wanted to buy prior service, I don't know why we would. Everybody's got their money in already. It would stay there. Wouldn't move. How much would that cost, and for how long? And if we had we wouldn't have an unfunded liability because we would move any money, but we could ask them for rates over 15, 20, or 35 years. But I mean, starts to get really complicated, and I find it fascinating, but nobody else does. But it's pretty simple. It's not much different than going to the car dealer and asking to buy a car. They want to say, do you want to trade in your old car? Well, I can write you a contract with your old car, or with a new car, without a car, and what kind of options do you want? So I don't even know if the commission wants to give direction to Keene, or whether they want to just turn it back to the committee, the policy and personnel committee, and say, well, do something. I don't know.
Okay.
No one's getting married to anybody here.
No, but I think we got to do something soon. We also got Rachel's situation. I don't know what that is. We have Rachel's situation, if there is a situation. But I mean, we're in a situation where we're hiring people. We gotta be able to tell them what they're getting. Yeah, Craig.
So, Keene, could you just advise how other LAFCOs have dealt with this? Obviously, you're in other LAFCO situation in the North Bay, and how,
Well, admittedly, most other LAFCOs in the Bay Area are county employees, right? So they're contracted as county. So we're in a unique situation. But certainly, staff can work with the policy committee and vet out that question a little more. We did it with OPED. We haven't done it with pension, about what are those independent LAFCOs doing with respect to pension benefits.
So what Keene means by that-
With Jeff Wickman,
Yes.
head of MCR, you've talked to him.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That took place about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we had long discussions, and we thought everything was signed off, and everybody agreed, and then we found out nothing happened.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is with, what's his name? Peter.
With Peter, and for our employees going forward. It wasn't just Peter.
Oh, yeah, we were explicit. We've said, okay, now that we hopefully have solved this problem, what do we do going forward with you folks at the county? How do we fund this? What can
We
do?
came here and got a resolution from the commission, at which we were requested to get to kick it off. And we brought that back, and they said, thank you very much, you're home.
Yeah.
And then we found out, no,
But-
you're not.
Yeah, Jeff, in answer to Commissioner Murray's question, I think, as Keene points out, if you're a LAFCO employee in a dependent county, you're just a member of whatever retirement system they're in. So if Solano County, I don't know whether they have an independent LAFCO or not, that's a PERS county, and you're simply a PERS member. If you work in Santa Clara County, I think they have an independent LAFCO, that's a CalPERS county. But if you work for Sonoma County or Alameda County or San Mateo County, they're all 37 Act counties. I think they're all independent LAFCOs, but those people are all in the county retirement system simply because they've always been in the county
Well,
retirement
that's where they
system.
came from.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
before the LAFCOs became independent,
Yeah.
many of them were just a extension of the county planning department.
But there aren't really, unless you're going to get out of the business. Unless you're going to get out of the business entirely, there are only 2 games in town.
So we can pursue this and come back with here are some choices. Right now, it has taken a while to get to this point. And as I said, it ain't easy. And that's why it appears we're dragging our feet on this one. But it's
Perhaps a reasonable game plan would be another just verbal update on December 10th and maybe something more substantive in January or February. But it will take some time.
yeah. And it might be better to go, I'm just thinking out loud, go ahead with the first 3 phases of the policy report finalized and have the personnel matter be a kind of a standalone personnel document. I don't know. But I think it's going to take longer than just a few months to get that done. Chris, thank you. There's nothing like San Jose in the fall.
There's so much to do downtown.
Okay. Next item is item 8, which is the review of the draft scope of analysis regarding the wastewater services in central Marin County. Keene?
Actually, Rachel will handle
Rachel, I'm sorry, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. The item before the Commission is a draft scope of analysis to guide in the preparation and timing of the agency's scheduled municipal service review on public wastewater service in central Marin County. This proposal follows the current study schedule of municipal service reviews adopted in June 2014 under the Commission's current work plan. We identified 7 agencies for inclusion in the study, and they are the San Rafael Sanitation District, County Sanitary District 1, County Sanitary District 2, Murray Park Sewer Maintenance District, San Quentin Sewer Maintenance District, and Central Marin Sewer Agency, a joint powers authority. The study will evaluate the performance of these 7 agencies with regards to their efficiencies in collecting, treating, and disposing wastewater in their immediate areas and the region. This item is for the Commission to review and authorize, with or without changes, a draft scope of analysis for final approval by January 2016. If agreeable, staff would circulate the draft scope of analysis to all affected agencies and make available to the general public for review and comment, with anticipation of returning to the Commission for formal approval in January. Let's see. So the scope of analysis is structured or organized into 5 distinct and sequential phases. Staff believes the proposed scope of analysis outlines an approximate 12-month process for the Commission to effectively and openly evaluate the performances and efficiencies of these wastewater services within Central Marin County. So the first phase is the parameters setting, and this is for the Commission to formally designate the geographic area, subject services, and the affected agencies to be evaluated. It is proposed the membership designate the region along the Central 101 corridor as the geographic area and include both the collection, treatment, and wastewater agencies that service the 6 cities, which in 6 cities and towns of San Rafael, Corte Madera, Larkspur, Fairfax, Ross, and San Anselmo. This setting would necessitate evaluations of the capacities, demands, and performances of all 7 wastewater agencies operating the collection, treatment, and disposal systems. The goal is for final approval by January 2016, corresponding to approving the scope of analysis. The second phase involves preparing standalone profiles for each affected agency included in the review, and they will be distributed to each subject agency for their informal review and comment to identify any technical corrections or related edits before their presentation to the Commission. This phase is expected to take up to 6 months to complete due to the data collection and analysis. And in regards to the 2 phases, the first and second phase, staff intends to rely on a technical advisory committee with representatives from each affected agency within the geographic area to assist in developing a framework to best determine these performance measures of these services. So the committee is expected to meet each month during a 5-month period and possibly thereafter to assist these 2 phases or with the scope. And so for the 3rd phase, we have the draft report. It will be a complete document and will incorporate any technical corrections or related edits identified. That is expected to take 2 months to complete for approval by August 2016. Phase 4, which is the public review, it's for a formal public comment period on the draft report as well as performing associated outreach to the affected agencies and interested stakeholders. And this would be from August 2016 to September 2016. And lastly and finally, we have the 5th and final phase, and this will be the final report to be presented to the Commission by November 2016 for action at a notice public hearing. So with all of this, staff recommends the Commission to proceed with actions outlined in the first alternative action, which is to review the draft scope of analysis and identify any desired changes and authorize staff to solicit comments from the affected agencies in anticipation of taking formal action by January 2016.
Great, thank you, Rachel. So we're to look over the proposed work scope, get back to you, send any comments to you or Keen or to you, to Rachel, and then we would be looking at adopting it at our January meeting.
Yeah, and as Rachel mentioned, just to tag along, so right before I showed up, the Commission adopted a set of policies. One of the things you wanted was to do this formal scope of analysis. So you sign off on kind of the game plan staff comes up with. And just as Rachel noted, we are trying something different. So just in case there are those in the communities that don't think we were listening during the water study, we get that maybe we didn't do a good enough job getting some buy-in from the communities themselves, especially the technical staff members on some agreement on assumptions. So we've already started to work on a technical advisory committee. Rachel mentioned we're going to start meeting with them on a monthly basis. I think that will help smooth this study a little better than perhaps the water study.
And
I think that's a good approach.
Who comprises the technical group?
So we'll have a representative from each affected agency of the 7 agencies.
Staff person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, that's a good point, Judy, a staff person. From a technical standpoint, I suppose that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
So, report on the LAFCO annual conference.
Very quickly, there's a program that I made a copy of for the Commission. Thank you again for allowing staff to do a little overnight travel to beautiful Sacramento. And I did highlight one session that was on Thursday evening. Myself and Kate Sears, amongst others, did a session on climate change in LAFCOs. And while we didn't win any converts from Central Valley, the Bay Area members liked it, so we did that.
Well, there are some in the Central Valley that better be looking at that.
Yeah.
Because some of them are really below sea level
Did
there.
they whisper that so, Marin?
They did.
I
A
guess.
few other adjectives.
Well, that's one of the things we put on our strategic plan is
Yeah.
to carry the message of climate change and its effect out there. And it's good that, I think with your initiative, that program was put on. And fortunately, Kate had a good slideshow, which I've seen her present around the area. Okay. At this time, we're going to break into an executive session. And we're doing this pursuant to Government Code 54957, which authorizes the commission to go in a closed session. We are going to meet across the hall in the little conference room there, just to your right. But before we do that, I'm going to open up if any members of the public want to comment on the session. Now's the time for them to do that. We will come back here and report out any actions the commission has taken. So if you would collect your papers and anything you have to help you in this process, I'll meet you across the hallway in the room in a few minutes. Then we'll come back here and complete the meeting, and that will be that. I'm going to call the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission back to order. We've been out in executive session reviewing the executive officer's performance. We have decided to extend his agreement with us to increase his salary to $130,000 per year, to modify it to provide election to convert up to 60 hours of vacation or personal leave or a combination thereof to cash each fiscal year. And in year 21, assuming he will be here for 21 years and thereafter, change his vacation leave accrued each biweekly pay period from 6.2 hours to 8 hours. So that concludes the item number 10. Move the executive officer's report. And unless, Rachel, you have anything, we'll skip to any commissioner announcements or requests. And then the magic adjournment
Move to close the
motion.
meeting.
Motion and second to close the meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.